Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, along with my co-host Candy Ebling, and leading off and playing first base is Rick Curdy. How you doing, Rick?
Hey guys, how are you?
Oh, we're doing great. Obviously, the theme of tonight's Sports Exchange is a baseball theme, and the reason why we are using a baseball theme is one of my idols growing up as a kid, Hall of Famer Al Kaline, passed away. No cause of death was listed at the moment, but I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Tiger on two occasions, and he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Only regret I have is that never got a photo with him, but I will say my beloved photographer Candy got one of him and Jim Leland over at Joker Marchant Stadium. But I met Al a couple times, once when I spoke in detail, and then once when I was passing by because he was obviously busy around Tiger Town. So anyways, Rick, let's talk about Al Kaline and the legacy that he left behind.
Well, he was one of the best players in not only in Tiger history, but in all of baseball. He made his debut at 18 years old in 1953. He was an 18-time All-Star. He had 297 career batting average, just one shy of 400 home runs for 399. He made the Hall of Fame in 1980 on his first ballot, and what was very impressive with him was that he was the youngest man to ever win the batting title at 20 years old. He was actually he passed Ty Cobb, another great Detroit Tiger, and he did 12 days earlier than Cobb. They were both 20. Cobb did it in 1907. So the man's a legend, very well respected, very well beloved. Unfortunately, I didn't have the occasion to see him play a little before my time, but reading about him, studying about him, and he's just and I heard nothing but nice things about him. Very well respected, and just a great human being. And I think there was no cause of death, but they said he had a stroke a couple days ago, so that might have been one of the reasons for his passing. So, but they don't know yet.
Well, it's funny how you say that because some of the people that I know up in the Detroit area said he didn't look very good 3 or 4 weeks ago over at spring training. So 85 years of age, certainly a wonderful life, but like you said,
Yes.
He's more importantly a wonderful person all the way around. If you really want to break down the numbers, though, until his death, he spent 67 years with one organization, whether it's a player, a broadcaster, whether he was in the front office in an administrative role, wherever they needed Al Kaline, he was there. And when you also look at the fact that in the clubhouse, he spoke to every player, whether it was a young player, a veteran player, he didn't really care. He was that kind of a person. Yeah, again, my dealings with Al Kaline were unquestionably memorable. But see, as part of the media, you really got to be careful taking photos with these people because, there's a condition on the back if you're caught signing autographs or anything that's unprofessional, they can go ahead and remove you. So, now if I'm doing an interview with them and my photographer's there, it's one thing, but you can't look overly obvious in that particular situation. But Al Kaline is what he is. You talk about some of the classiest individuals that ever played the game. He certainly did. And, he has a world championship in 1968 to show for it when the Tigers beat the St. Louis Cardinals 4-3, and Detroit was down, actually, 3-2 going into St. Louis at Busch Gardens. So, unbelievable.
Yeah, and I mean, just a legend, a great human being, great guy. They never heard anything bad about him. Everybody said wonderful things about him. And like I said, he was one of the best players to ever play, one of the greatest Detroit Tigers to ever play. He actually was the first Tiger to have his number retired, number 6. So I thought that was really interesting. So, like I said, he was 85 years old. He was born in Baltimore. And just a great guy, did great things to the community, and to spend that many years with one organization is, with anybody, anything is amazing. So it shows you his dedication.
Yeah, well, and can you imagine this? You want to talk about the almighty dollar, okay? After 1971, when he hit 294, he's the first Tiger to sign a $100,000 contract. And today that would be worth $631,306. So
When he directly out of high school as an 18-year-old, he signed as a bonus baby, and he received $35,000 to sign with the team. In today's dollars, that would be worth $334,000 just for signing as a young 18-year-old.
Not bad.
Nope.
Not bad for 18 years old. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'd take it, and I'm not 18.
Hey son, how's the job, honey? Oh, I just got a job. I just made $334,000 signing my name. Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, I once had an opportunity to ask him about whether he regretted not going after that 400th home run. He said, yeah, he admitted that he did. But, you know, he hit that 3,000th hit off of Dave McNally of the Baltimore Orioles, and he was content with his 3,000 hits. And when you think about Al Kaline in general, though, he's the seventh player in MLB to have 3,000 hits and 15 RBI with one franchise. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, one franchise.
It's unheard of now. I mean, people move from team to team, and you know, and he loved being a Tiger. You know, he wanted to be there, and he was there for over 60 years. And he played, not only did he just play right field, but he was also playing the DH as well.
Well, he has a statue. Candy and I were at Comerica Park of him making that Al Kaline catch trying to rob guys out of a home run. And when you have a statue because of your defensive play, what does that tell you? I mean, a statue of a defensive player. Forget about the offense, but a defensive player to show you what a tremendous defensive player that he really was. I mean, think about it. Gold Gloves, the man wins? I think he wins 10 Gold Gloves, and he's an 18-time All-Star. 10 Gold Gloves.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you break down what he's done, and you're like, man, why don't we talk about him more? His numbers are, like, sensational, you know, and, you know, he's just a legend and a great guy, and, you know, so it's sad to see him go as, you know, one of the legends to go, and, you know, but, it happens, and may he rest in peace.
Well, I remember a few years ago when Gordie Howe passed away, and you want to talk about a huge funeral for Gordie Howe and the attention he ended up getting. What do you think about Detroit in general, though? Like a lot of big cities that have had four major sports through the years. You know, Detroit had Al Kaline and Gordie Howe.
Yeah.
Guys that played with their respective teams for a lot of years. I mean, how many cities would give their right arm to have one like that, let alone two? And that doesn't count the rich history in Detroit with some of the other icons that they've had, which, when you look at all the different championships that they've had, sure, in recent years you're talking about, you know, they've struggled in the last few years, but, you know, they've had a proud tradition in that city, and I'm proud to be a Metro Detroiter. I really am. And, you know, I mean, but when you think about the sum of the whole and the whole of the sum, you know, you had Kobe Bryant dying in L.A. this year, but then when you look at what would happen when Vince Scully goes and Tom Lasorda go away.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
it's like an end of an era.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's. I mean, these guys are larger than life. What about you, Ken? Do you have any people in the Milwaukee area that you feel are larger than life? Or
Bob Uecker comes to mind by all means, because he did more. I mean, his baseball career wasn't the greatest, I'll admit, but he's been
great actor. I love him.
I was gonna say he was an actor, and he's been calling Brewer games for forever.
Well, my answer to that is Ernie Harwell, and you know what? The best part about Ernie Harwell for me is not only was he a friend, but he was like an adopted family member. And every time I look at the greatest Tiger, me personally, nothing against Al Kaline, I would always put Ernie Harwell at the top of my list. But then again, only because of the working relationship I had with Ernie. Not only was he like a mentor of sorts to me, but a family member. Every time I got in a jackpot, he was always there to help me out. And, you know, it was just, to me, But again, I'm not. Again, this night belongs to Al Kaline. And when you talk about icons, he to me is bigger in the sport, and when you look at the tributes that are pouring in around the country with Al Kaline, especially back home in Detroit, to me there aren't you wouldn't have enough tributes to, and now of course the magnitude of social media with it pouring in is even greater than that.
It's just great to see what's going on in our country today, in our world today, and it's so sad to see a legend like that pass. But he was 85 years old, had a great career and a great life, and I mean, you haven't heard one negative thing about him, not one scandal, not one player or anybody coming out saying, "Oh, he was a horrible person." Everybody loved the man, everybody respected the man, and you could tell by outpours people are doing for him right now.
Yeah, that's really true. And when you look at all the numbers, though, that stand out, what impresses you the most about him? Is it 18 All-Star games or 10 Gold Gloves?
Probably the 10 Gold Gloves. I mean, the 18 All-Star games that just shows his consistency. But, the win 10 Gold Gloves, and as a defensive player, as a right fielder, that's even more impressive, So, his numbers are phenomenal, but I think winning 10 Gold Gloves, and he's one of the best defensive players ever. It shows with his Gold Gloves, so I think that's the most impressive one to me.
When we talked last week on our show with you and I and winners, we talked about great rivalries, and then you talk about the Detroit Tigers and the New York Yankees. A lot of people say, well, why would I bring that one in? Well, because these two organizations have been around a long time. They do. They had the first Hall of Fame class included players from each of those two teams, and Ty Cobb got in there ahead of Babe Ruth. And, obviously there'll always be that debate that the Tigers have only won 4 championships and the Yankees have won 28. But then again, for a lot of years, you didn't have the additional playoffs where more teams could get in. It was the best team from the American League and the best team from the National League. Now you have different tiers of playoffs. So, but again, but nobody's shortchanging what it takes to get in the playoffs and how hard. I mean, you have to wonder. But Al Kaline was just one of those types of people to me that he played the game defensively. He played it right, but he can appeal to any generation. But as a kid growing up, watching him on the telecast with George Kell and Al Kaline, I never thought down the road I would have an opportunity to meet both of those individuals. But you learned a lot as a youngster growing up listening to those two guys. They were really good. You have 2 Hall of Famers in the booth that were really good, very simple in the way they went about their business. And for me, iconic announcers, everybody will always talk about Ernie Harwell, but when you had Al Kaline and you had George Kell, they were unbelievable. They really were. And ironically, they were both from the Baltimore area as well. A lot of history in Baltimore that most people don't even realize.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of history with the Tigers. I mean, they've had so many great players. Al Kaline, of course, can't forget about Hank Greenberg. So, I mean, the Tiger organization has been blessed with so many, just legends. Just extraordinary legends. And Al Kaline's one of them. And, like I said, it's just an end of a generation. And, I think when people see his numbers and see what he meant to the game, they're going to be like, wow, he was a fantastic player. So.
Well, don't forget about Mickey Lolich, the guy that outdueled Bob Gibson in that World Series. But I know, and the Tigers' 13-1 win over the Cardinals in Game 6 in St. Louis, Kaline had a very good offensive showing and led the Tigers into that 6th game, and then Mickey Lolich took over from there, outdueling Bob Gibson. So, you talk about a team that wasn't really expected to beat the Cardinals, but they came back and did it anyways. And I think the Cardinals beat the Red Sox in 1967, and they were expected to go ahead and repeat, but the Tigers had other ideas in mind, and as a result, they were world champions in 1968. So any other closing thoughts about it?
No, just he was a legend, and sad to see him go. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to watch him play, which I did. But just reading about him throughout my years growing up, and my dad, grew up in that era, and he just said he was one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived, and this is like. It was much different back then and all that stuff. And back now you got all these, like all these bats that are special, and you got all this training special and all that stuff. And they just kind of did it the old-fashioned way. They didn't have the technology that we have today. So I think that's what makes it even more impressive.
Do you have MLB Network?
Do I have it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I believe, if I read correctly, that they're actually playing Games 6 and 7 of the '68 World Series against the Cardinals. I think you'll see one day that I think they're playing Game 6. That's when you'll see Kaline's offense, and of course Game 7 is Mickey Lolich. And I had the great privilege of having Lolich on a broadcast with my former co-host Peter Ween over a year ago, and Mickey was great. But again, if you get a chance to watch those, you should. Take them in if you didn't have an opportunity to go ahead and see it, because it's really, truly special and remarkable. It really is. So, all right, well, we have a couple of minutes. Why don't you go ahead and talk about who you represent and how people can find you.
Well, my name is Rick Curdy. I'm the founder and CEO of the Charlotte Bats, and Let's Bring MLB to Charlotte. And it's exactly what we say. We're trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte. You can check out our website at www.charlottebats.com. We also are on Facebook at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We just started a new group page called Charlotte MLB, and we're also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and you can actually have a personal account there at Rick Curdy, and I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. So you can contact me on any avenue you can, or if you want to send me an email, it's cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. That's cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
So tell me, how are you doing with that petition to get more and more people involved? Has it tailed off a little bit, or are you starting to gather more signatures? Because I know you tend to make lots of appearances, or at least up until quarantine hit. You go to Gastonia, and you do promote baseball around the greater North Carolina area. But are you starting? How many signatures would you say that you're up to now?
I think we believe that we have over 1,300 right now.
Okay.
It's a little bit tailed off a little bit because of the quarantine and people not going out and stuff like that. But I've actually been doing a lot more radio shows. I've had people contact me saying, "Hey, I heard your show, and I'd love for you to come on my show one day." And it's like, really? He goes, "Oh, yeah." So I've actually been kind of busy doing the radio shows. The TV interviews, of course, that's not happening right now. But I've been doing a lot of radio shows and keeping myself busy. So it's been pretty active during this quarantine time, which I'm actually really surprised.
Yeah, well, another thing I should point out to our listeners as well is Rick's very helpful with us on the social media side as well. So, there was a time when you wrote, but I think that, it was more important that I felt you were more valuable to us on the air than you were as a writer. No indictment against your writing skills, but some people just talk it a little bit more, and some don't like to write as frequent, which is perfectly suited by me, as long as you can get your message across in a very credible way, and you've certainly been a tremendous help for us. So,
thank you.
I'm glad that you have a chance to talk about Al Kaline, and I knew, like I said, when Gordie Howe passed away, I said I can only imagine what Detroit's going to be like when Al Kaline goes, and unfortunately now we're finding out that he is indeed gone. Candy, anything else you want to add to this?
The only thing I'll say, though, is yes, you're seeing how people are going to react, but people aren't going to react the same because you can't react publicly. So all you can do is social media. It's not like, I hate to say it, but so many people that are passing away these days, there is no funeral, there is no gathering, there is no burial site, because with the social distancing and everything being quarantined, you're not getting the same reaction that you might have. You're not going to have a parade or an outpouring, like even when Kobe passed away and they had that whole big celebration and stuff like that.
Good point.
Unless they do it later on down, depending on what MLB ends up doing with their whole season, I could see there being a dedication or something maybe during a World Series if we have a season. but what the celebration of life will be very different now than it was previous.
Yeah, true. I mean, you're not going to have the bigger funerals. We're all caught up in the COVID-19 situation. And while we're bringing up COVID-19, I hope everybody in our audience has an opportunity to listen to our broadcast. We try to do the best that we possibly can to provide you with the best entertainment possible. And all we ask you to do is please be safe. Don't do anything stupid. You have got to take this virus seriously. If you don't, you'll be a statistic for all the wrong reason. Tell me what it's like in North Carolina. Is there a lockdown now up there?
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, not everything's locked down. Unfortunately, for some reason, they've kept our parks and our greenways open. And this past weekend, people have been going out to the parks, and it's just been really frustrating because people are really not taking it seriously. What's the sad part about it is that you see families bringing their kids along with them, so they're exposing their children. So I've been advising, hopefully, trying to tell the governor, or trying to tell our city council or our county commissioners that you guys need to close the parks down, because all these other states like California and New York that have a complete shutdown, it's actually improving. The numbers in New York have gone down a little bit. The air quality in California, Los Angeles, believe it or not, has been great. It's been better, and so it looks like it's starting to decrease. Here, it's going up still. We're hearing more deaths every day.
Right.
It's just unfortunate, but people are just not really taking it seriously, and this is not a joking matter. It was nothing to be made fun of when it first came about, and it's definitely not. As now, I'm starting to see more people say, "Wow, I thought this was like some thing that would last for a couple of weeks. This is like horrific." So I have seen more people really step up and really take it more seriously, but I'm still seeing people there that are just, they think they're bulletproof, and it's just sad.
Good choice of words. Okay, on that note, we'll get you out of here. You'll be busy tomorrow night, though, when we get ready to do our incredible show with Bill Winter. So the Three Stooges will be at it tomorrow night. And we'll have a local guest here in the studio as well. We'll get into that tomorrow. But meanwhile, Rick, thanks for chiming in today on Kaline, and we'll have a very busy night tomorrow night. My advice to you for the rest of the night, if you have MLB Network, please go ahead and watch not only tonight but Thursday as well. You'll definitely get a very good understanding of what I grew up with. And I was actually, my dad actually took me to the World Series. I think it was Game 3 when Earl Wilson was pitching for the Detroit Tigers, and I believe that's a game they lost. But to have an opportunity to go to a World Series game in my lifetime when my father took me was truly remarkable. But anyway, Rick, thank you very much for being on the program, and we'll be back tomorrow night. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.
So, yeah, life today is very different than it was before COVID-19.
Yeah, it has. I mean, every event on the planet is being canceled. I'm wondering. So, if you're a betting person, which one do you think gets started first?
Honestly, I think baseball, because I think baseball is further along in their planning process. The other thing is baseball is a non-contact sport,
right.
So you can keep your social distance or somewhat, And I think they've got a plan. They're talking about doing their games out in Arizona, where all the spring training and the fall leagues are. They can have it without fans. They have plenty of fields out there. They don't have to be playing if they're going to do it without fans. I mean, half the league has their training out there,
right?
Because they spring train out there,
right?
And every spring training site has how many different fields on it,
right?
There's got to be at least 2, 3, 4 fields that are full fields, I think, at each spring training facility. Now, where it gets a little more dicey is like, where do they train? Like, do they do weightlifting? Do they have gyms? Because, yes, the teams that are out there have their own facilities.
Right.
But would they be sharing them?
God, I would doubt that. I really would. I think they'd have to do what you and I talked about in pre-production. Probably try to find a Gold's Gym or LA Fitness or something and rent it out for the better part of so many months. just to keep them away. And I think that can be doable. But you're right. I would find it hard to believe that multiple teams be training in it. I would, because you don't want any more contact than necessary.
I mean, there already are numerous teams out there that share their facilities as well.
Right.
You know, more so than over in the Florida in the Grapefruit League.
Well, I would think, how many solos do you have out in Arizona? I know the Oakland A's are solo.
Brewers are solo.
Right, and the Cubbies are solo.
And the Giants are solo.
Right, so you have at least 3.
That's 4.
All right, okay, do them again.
Brewers, A's, Cubs, Giants.
Right, okay, I forgot about them.
I think everybody.
Isn't there one more?
Well,
the Angels.
No, there's.
The Angels are by themselves. Which so you got 5, and then you have the other 10 wash out. So I knew there was one. All right, our next guest is former New York Giants offensive lineman Bill Winters. And Bill, welcome to the broadcast.
Good evening, Scott. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Hi, Bill.
You're on with Candy.
Hi, Candy.
All right, Bill, we're definitely going to be talking baseball, but not the Houston Astros, but we're actually talking about my hometown Detroit Tigers, a guy that you probably should be all too familiar with since he played in an area that we both are all too familiar with. So why don't you give me some of your best reflections of Al Kaline?
Well, I was 14 years old in 1968 when, we were just getting dialed in, because remember, there's only a couple of stations out there that televised baseball games.
Right.
So when the Detroit Tigers played the St. Louis Cardinals in Game 7, it was probably the most memorable World Series I ever had as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees had dominated for 10 years, but they were really, weren't on TV that much except for the World Series.
Right.
But when I was 8 years old, I was getting exposed to Major League Baseball for the first time, and the Tigers won in Game 7, and Al Kaline was, Al Kaline, was number 6, and he was the Detroit Tiger. He was up there with Stan Musial, and Joe DiMaggio, and that's what I remember about Al Kaline.
Yeah, Al Kaline had a really productive game in Game 6 and a 13-1 Tigers win. Mickey Lolich outdueled Bob Gibson in Game 7, and I proudly have that picture here in the studio with the Lolich freehand hug. And, I had a chance to meet Al Kaline twice. Once I spent time with him, talking to him, and then I saw him, we shook hands at spring training, and won't answer, a much nicer guy, and what can I tell you? I mean, the man stayed in an organization for 67 years, not only as a player, but a broadcaster, as well as in the administrative side. Everybody always wanted him there, and why not? Mr. Tiger. There's a reason why he is called Mr. Tiger.
Well, to be honest with you, Al represents the best of Major League Baseball. If I had to sum up one word with him, it was humble.
Right.
The guy played 22 years, 22 seasons, and he had more games and more homers than any Detroit Tiger. His batting resume is only second to Ty Cobb. And what I liked about him was, and I did a little research on him, he was one of the first guys to get a rather large signing bonus. He got $35,000. But the press hyped the crap out of that, because really what it was a $15,000 bonus and then a couple of season salaries. But Detroit was marketing him as their, one of their star players, and he was signed as 18 years old. And back then, if you made over $4,000, you had to, be in the majors. If you made under $4,000, you had to go in the minor leagues, which I thought was very interesting. So 1 week later, he's in the major leagues. The next year, he's leading the major leagues in hitting as a 20-year-old kid. And to this day is one of the best records in American League Baseball. But during that whole ride, he did things like paying for eye surgeries and paying off his mother's mortgage. Never really, forgot where he came from. He's just an attitude guy, the kids should emulate guys like him today.
Yeah, he hails from Baltimore, the home of the Orioles. In fact, what's interesting about Al is he ended up collecting his 3,000th hit against Baltimore Orioles pitcher Dave McNally. So talk about a career that came full circle. Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that he had 18 All-Star appearances and 10 Gold Gloves, and he has a statue because of his defensive play. That to me is sensational.
Yeah, he was just a great all-around player. He had 399 homers, and he really kind of sat out. The last game it got a little sketchy, and a lot of people showed up to watch him try to get his fourth homer, and I think he sat down in that game and wanted somebody else to be in there because he was a really humble guy. I remember Mayo Smith when the Tigers went to the World Series in Game 7. They did a rotating of the outfield. Right, in order to get him in there because he had been banged up during the course of the season.
Right.
And he felt like he was such a team player that he felt like he shouldn't be starting in the World Series based on the performance of Jim Northrup and a couple of other guys. And Mayo Smith was smart enough to put him in there, and he really batted over 500 in the World Series. And was him and Mickey Lowich probably were the backbone of that team.
Right.
Mickey pitching. I believe Mickey pitched two games in that 7-game series.
Won 3 actually.
Yeah.
He won 3.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that as a kid. And Al was just absolute clutch.
Yeah.
Winning. In that series, and it was a great move by Mayo Smith. That's the big reason why the Tigers won the World Series.
Well, the bold move that you're referring.
The attitude in the locker room they brought.
Yeah, the bold move that you're talking about, Bill, is when Ray Oyler was their starting shortstop. They moved Mickey Stanley to shortstop just to get Al Kaline's bat in. You want to talk about one of the most bold postseason moves on the planet? That one definitely is it. I mean, you get Mickey Stanley, who was one of the, you obviously have 4 great outfielders, but the injury, Kaline came back on time, Oyler sat, and they were able to put all 4 in. And yeah, he had a great World Series, and Mayo Smith, to me, did a sensational job. But Mickey Lowich won 3 games in that series and outdueling Bob Gibson. But Al Kaline was one of those unselfish individuals. He didn't care about his own personal numbers. He was more collectively concerned about what the team did. And that, to me, is what made him such an unbelievable human being, let alone player. Yeah.
Just a great natural player. Heck, Ted Williams, when Boston came into Detroit, Ted's relationship with the press was very, very nasty at times, and
right.
He just came in and went by everybody and just wanted to beat out Kaline. He had a respect amongst his peers, which means more than anything. Today I've been watching television over the last week or two and watching these shows and with all the social technology. The kids today, they talk too much. They don't know enough about the history. And guys that are really intelligent stay humble. Are team players, and that's what wins championships. And that's what I remember about Al Kaline when I was in 8th grade. So I learned a lot from him on how to be a player and what really counts when it comes to winning championships. These are the types of things today that we try to teach youngsters. They get a little blinded sometimes by the social media and Twitter and all that other stuff, and they make mistakes with it. But if they do their homework, the really intelligent kids know to act like Al Kaline, because his attitude is probably his humble attitude is what he's voted for. Everybody knew he was a great player, but he just had the respect of everybody, and he was a clutch hitter too. That's a lot of people don't realize that, but he was a clutch hitter. I remember that a lot when I watched him play.
Well, Candy, I remember I took her out to Lakeland, I think one of the first times, and she took a picture of Jim Leland and Al Kaline when they were out at Joker Marchant Stadium. Boy, I can only imagine what that picture's worth nowadays. But more importantly, Jim Leland, there's a story on him talking about Al Kaline, and the last time Leland saw Kaline, he almost felt like it was the last time he would, because he sensed something that wasn't right with him medically is what had happened. And lo and behold, Jim was right on target that, Al Kaline was definitely sick, and it's too bad it ended abruptly, let alone the fact that it ends at a time where we're talking about COVID-19. So now you have all this negativity going around with the virus, and then you lose an iconic individual like Al Kaline. But he did live until he was 85 years of age, and he stayed busy until the very, very end. I mean, he was employed with the club until his death. 67 years employed with the club, Bill. 67.
That's how long. That's how you live a long life. We had a guy here in Texas die at 103 years of age, and when they asked him what his secret to living so long was, keep on moving.
Yeah.
So that's what Al. Al was with the organization forever, and he was still a humble guy, and he was loved by everyone, and he was just a great all-around ball player, both defensively and offensively. So he's right up there with Stan Musial and Joe DiMaggio and all the other greats of the game. In fact, what's really interesting is he got inducted to the Hall of Fame in his first year.
Yeah.
And there's only a handful of guys that did that: Musial, Ted Williams, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Jackie Robinson. Joe DiMaggio didn't get it in his first year, and Cy Young and Hank Greenberg. And then when they tried to compare him to Hank Greenberg, he's really humble because I was reading a little research on him, and he came up as a rookie, and a lot of the pitchers didn't really shoot him for real, so they didn't really, they just threw him, straight stuff. And he was leading, hitting a ton and really hot and winning the American League, going to winning American League batting title. And they wound up in August going, we've got to change up the way we're pitching this guy because this guy's for real. He's no piss-hand rookie. And, that was very interesting. And so when they tried to compare him to Hank Greenberg, Al wasn't a home run hitter. Hank Greenberg was. Hank had some 500-plus home runs. So he says, you can't compare me to Hank Greenberg. That's how humble he was. But he was just a great player. 400 home runs or 399 home runs is quite an accomplishment as well. It's not to be minimized. But that's the way Al fought.
Right.
Okay, and that's the way he came across. But he was a great hitter as well. So a great defensive player. And like you said, the statue that they have of him in Tiger Stadium, it's him, with a glove making a defensive play. It's not him with a bat or a ball.
Yeah, well, let me also point out something, okay? We can talk about hypotheticals until we're blue in the face, okay? But think about this for a second, Bill. The Tigers played in the same division as the New York Yankees, okay? Back in the day when you had Eastern and Western Division, okay? And then before even you had any expansion and all that. But when you think about the Tigers having great seasons in the Yankees, and even though there's a big disparity between 28 World Championships versus 4, the Yankees had to be awfully good, and the Tigers to not even get in the World Series because of the legendary players that the Yankees have. And that's why I alluded to the other night when we were on about greatest rivalries, that the Tigers and Yankees is a lot better than most people think, especially when you look at the Hall of Famers over the years with these two franchises. And they have a really steep history. I mean, remember, Ty Cobb was the first player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame from the Tigers, and I think Babe Ruth was like second or third. So, so when you talk about rich traditions, unquestionably, these two organizations have it. They really
Scott,
do.
remember the National League and the American League, they didn't have any divisional playoffs.
Exactly. Right.
All right. So the reason the Tigers, you didn't really hear about the Tigers, even though they were just a tremendous, team. You had the Yankees ripping off, 10 in a row as a dynasty.
Exactly.
So the minute the Yankees hit cup, there comes Detroit. Now, what's really interesting, Detroit was really good after that, but in 1969, baseball expanded to divisional play.
Right.
Okay, and they almost were back in there again, but they got beat by the A's 2-1.
Right. Well,
right?
3-2 in the series. You're right.
But,
yeah.
Al Kaline at age 37 had one of the hottest hitting stretches of his career.
Right.
The final days of the season, he helped the Tigers edge Boston by a half a game for the Eastern Division title. In his last 10 games, he batted .512, 21 for 41 with 4 homers, 8 RBIs, and 15 runs scored. All right, and if the Tigers had beaten Oakland in the playoffs, Kaline would have had been back in the World Series. But it was a winner-take-all final game in that playoff series, and Oakland, snuck out at Tiger Stadium with a 2-1 win.
Right, I remember that actually.
Yeah. Vita Blue and the Oakland A's. Yeah, it's just it was just amazing.
Well,
that's what I remember as a child watching those games.
Yeah, that was the beginning of an A's dynasty too back then. It really, really was. Mm-hmm. And I remember Billy Martin was the manager for the Detroit Tigers. I think Laren LeGros in that series threw at Bert Campaneris, and Bert Campaneris threw a bat right at LeGros, missed. And then I would later ask Campaneris down in Tampa many years ago if he ever regretted that. He really did admit to regretting throwing that, but when you're getting beaten like he did, but But again, yeah, you're right. But at least the one thing we can say about Al Kaline, though, is this. At least he's a great player that had an opportunity to win a championship. There are a lot of great players that don't win championships, but at least Al Kaline is not in that classification. Thank God.
Hey, I'll tell you one better. In that playoff game.
What's that?
Against Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
It was a winner-take-all final game of the playoff series.
Right.
Oakland, got out there with a 2-1 victory.
Mm-hmm.
With the potential tying run in the decisive Game 5. Right, the Tigers had guys on in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings against Red and Blue.
Mm-hmm.
Aurelio Rodriguez made the 3rd out in the 7th. Kaline made the 2nd out, and Duke Sims the 3rd out in the 8th. And Tony Taylor made the game's final out. And just one base hit. All right, and that could have been made the difference. So you're talking about a razor thin factor here on him getting more publicity. Because remember, we didn't have cable TV back then.
No, I know.
So the whole nation was turned on that. So if you didn't win, you didn't get publicity.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, back then you had the NBC Game of the Week is what you had. I believe at the time, if I remember right, I think Kurt Gowdy was the announcer with Tony Kubek back for the Game of the Week. But yeah, they played those games during the day. They didn't do them in prime time until later on. So that made it even harder for more and more people to see it, Bill, because a lot of them were at work. Of course, I have to see my co-host here, who had a father that was a math teacher. Her first opening day act came down here in Miami when the Tigers took on the Marlins, because her father was a teacher and they never took days off and couldn't go to an opening day, right, Candy?
Opening days were always during the school year, so no, the teacher's daughter could not play hooky and go to opening day as much as she wanted to.
What do you think of that, Bill?
Well, I think that's why Candy's as smart as she is. Self-discipline these days. Okay, no hooky.
Yeah, well, I won't say that I didn't take a few days here and there, but because I did, but back then I wasn't able to drive, so it's a different story. But I ended up. But at least you got to an opening day game, albeit not with the Brewers, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean.
Nice. Hey, go ahead. What were you going to say, Scott?
No, that's okay. Go ahead. My thought's complete.
Well, Al Kaline was also in a 3,000 hit club.
Right. Well, Al Kaline.
He's one of the few baseball players to have done that as well.
Right. Well, Al Kaline, just so you know, was the 7th player in MLB to have 3,000 hits and 1,500 RBIs with one franchise, and I believe at that time, if I remember right, he was the 12th player to hit the 3,000 hit club at that particular time. So, I mean, there's no question that he, nowadays, what are the probability of getting 3,000 hits? It's a little bit more difficult and 300 home runs. But but Al Kaline definitely was in that. And again, he collected 88.3% of the vote during his. He was the 10th player in 1980 to be on the first year of the Hall of Fame ballot. So, 88.3%. That's I guess he
you have
didn't.
to get 75% to get in.
Yeah.
He got 85, which just shows how powerful.
88
as far as people think it should be in the Hall of Fame in the first ballot.
88.3 actually is a number that I looked up, but
nice.
But yeah, 75%, and you can't round it up from 74.8. You got to get 75, or you're in deep trouble. So, but anyways, Bill. All right, well, here's what we can do. Glad you had an opportunity to talk about Al Kaline. So the floor is yours, and let people know how they can find you. Go ahead.
Well, you can follow me on YouTube. Type in youtube.com/C/Bill Winters 55. I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also go to my website. I'd love for you to read my book, From the Outhouse to the Penthouse and Somewhere in Between. And it's at billwinters.biz. You can find me on Instagram at bwinters55. So you can find me on Twitter, Bill with a capital B, BILL, then underscore, and then Winters with a capital WINTERS 55. Make sure you put the the and in front of it, and then you're good. And then, of course, you can follow us on iHeart, Apple, or Spotify, and Google Motormouth, 2 words, and Wild Bill Winters, which is our show. And we'd love for you to be a steady listener to us as we grow our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've added a new member to our show, Rick Curdy, and I think it's a lot of fun when the three of us have an opportunity to exchange ideas along the way, And, again, it's all about, we've gone to a 3-man booth, although we can always go back to a 2-man booth when the situation presents itself. But our show is not only sports. We try to talk
Mayo
about...
Smith.
That's it, man. Mayo Smith. Yeah, but it's always... Well, no. But it's always good to be able to incorporate a variety of things, and there are times when we won't be talking about sports. We talk about the actual current events, whether they're sports or not. So we'll continue to show a lot more balance in what we do. But it's all about making sure that we can both agree that during these pandemic times, we work as hard as we can to make sure that everybody's entertained, so that we are a opportunity for you folks to take your mind off your current problems and focus on what we're trying to do. And if you can get one thing out of our broadcast, we definitely try to go ahead and do it. But, we want everybody to go out there and be safe and be careful. I don't want you on the wrong end of the stats. And unfortunately, these numbers are going up. They're not going down. So, so if we can be of any help to you, feel free to contact us as well. Any closing thoughts, Bill?
Stay safe out there. Stay humble and have love in your heart. And
again, our broadcast will be on tomorrow night with Bill Winters, myself, the Motor City Mad Mouth, and Rick Curdy. Well, Bill, well done tonight, and we look forward to having you back on the broadcast tomorrow. Thank you very much, Bill. Have a good evening.
Good night, Scoop.
You bet.
So your show tomorrow night, Wild Bill Winters with Motorman.
Right.
And Rick Curdy.
Right, and we're planning to bring in a local guy that I got to know recently named Dan Gudima, and he talks about startup businesses as well. So, Candy, why don't you give our audience an opportunity how they can find us and what to look for in the South Florida Tribune?
So, if you're looking for good content, something to read, because let's face it, we all have a little more time on our hands right now, please visit us at www.southfloridatribune.com. That was www.southfloridatribune.com. There is tons of things to read up on. What I will admit, majority of it is sports related, but there are some things that aren't sports related. We have a motivational Lynn LaSalle that talks about her Me Monday. And if you don't know what Me Monday is, go to southfloridatribune.com, look up Me Monday, Lynn LaSalle. We have all kinds of different...
Well, what about Aaron Krause? He talks about theater reviews.
Theater reviews, yes. And he actually talks, because let's face it, right now there isn't much theater going on, but he had a very interesting article about the effects of the coronavirus on how that's going to change the choreography of live theater. So it's a very interesting article. Go to www.southfloridatribune.com. We also have all kinds of different podcasts. You talked about previewing tomorrow night's podcast. Tonight's podcast, our broadcast here, South Florida Tribune broadcast, we are on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Spotify, pretty much Castbox, pretty much any place you get your podcasts, you can go. We have numerous shows. Sports Exchange is the show you're listening to right now.
And our next guest here on the Sports Exchange is our own South Florida Tribune analyst, multitasker, David Levin. And David, welcome back to the broadcast. I know we're keeping you busy beginning now on 4 days a week. And we're going to... so let's go ahead and talk...
Does that mean I get frequent flyer miles? I just
want to know. Well, you can say you get frequent flyer miles from one platform to the other. I would say so.
That
We're
How's everybody doing tonight?
all right. In fact, while we have the opportunity to do this, okay, David Levin is my new co-host on the on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and we're going to be doing a lot of great things with the broadcast. That show will be on Monday nights, beginning next Monday, although we're going to have another 108 Stitches Baseball Talk immediately after this broadcast with my longtime colleague, George Eichhorn. So, David appears on the Sports Exchange, appear on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and we have a lot of other projects that are definitely in the works. So we're doing really good, David. How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. Doing better than earlier. Thanks for asking.
You're very welcome.
I will let you know. And I'll tell everybody that's on here right now. I got to call back. I do not have coronavirus.
Good.
I've
Glad
got
to hear it.
some sort of crud that's going around. So that's really good news. I made Mom happy. I know that. She was a little worried, but I was feeling really bad yesterday. So anyway, you guys want to talk about baseball?
Let's talk some baseball.
Why not? That's been the reoccurring theme of the evening, and you're going to continue it until we carry it over into our next broadcast. So go ahead,
And by
David.
the way, I'm really looking forward to hearing the broadcast after you guys are done talking about Kaline. That's super really cool. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, you should, because the guy that I'll be doing it with is the guy who I got started in this business with, George Eichhorn. George and I have known each other for the better part of 40 years, and we've done the Sports Exchange back in Detroit when it was a 6-hour broadcast. We did it on Sunday for 2 hours. Yeah, you try to go out there and fill 6 hours of airtime on a Saturday night, and I'll tell you, you can only imagine what those pre-production meetings were like back then.
I bow to your superiority. Wow. Okay, so by the way, Candy, if you want to know anything in the secrets about Scott, you now know where to go. If he's known him for 40 years, he's got to know something.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
So,
I've got his number. Don't worry.
Gotcha. So, as Scott, like we were talking about earlier, there is a plan that they're putting together that would tentatively start baseball again in May. The only glitch to that is there's not going to be anybody in the stands. There will be more technology that will help determine balls and strikes. And unless they are eating, sleeping, breathing, or playing baseball, everybody is quarantined in the interim unless they're doing those few things. It's quite interesting, and it's unique. And if it works, this could be one of the best stories of the year in light of everything that's going on.
I think so. I mean, we're obviously alluding to digital baseball is what we're really referring to. And if I understood correctly, I remember when they were talking about moving the umpires a little bit further behind the catcher and robot umpires. Right. So, folks, digital baseball, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, may get an opportunity to go out there and experiment things way ahead of time, whether he wanted to or not, under these adverse circumstances.
Right. And, for you and I, who are big fans of teams that you would say are basement dwellers,
right,
this might be the best thing for us, if you think about it. And I know we were going to talk a little bit about what they want to do, that they're going to play their games. It looks like they're going to play their games in Arizona at the different spring training sites, where they're going to keep teams together, and they're going to be bussed in and out into games and whatnot. They're going to keep in close proximity to each other.
Well, don't forget that you have Chase Field included in that as well, the Diamondbacks' home stadium. So, in retrospect, you have like 11 stadiums.
Right, and it's a different format. I mean, it essentially is spring training baseball. That's what it just amounts to.
Right.
Without the people in the stands, and unfortunately for those of us on the East Coast, we don't get we don't get the privilege of knowing it's on our side of the country. However, we wouldn't be able to be there anyway. So technically, it really doesn't matter where they play, because fans aren't going to be allowed in to watch. And but the fact that we might be able to get to see it on TV, at least it's a diversion, and that's something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the problem that we have in Florida, it's the worst kept secret on the planet. You're in the Grapefruit League. You have 5 teams in one particular area, like the I-75 corridor, where you have you've got the Red Sox, the Twins, the Braves moved out there, the Pirates, and then you have the Tampa Bay Rays, and then you go to the
Marlins.
Right. No, I'm talking about on I-75.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, on the West Coast, and then on I-95, where you're referring to it, yeah, you have the Marlins, you have the Cardinals, you have the Mets, and the Nationals and the Astros in the Tampa Bay area. You have another 5 more. Yeah, well,
Right.
you have the Yankees, the Phillies, the Blue Jays. I'm trying to remember the other 2.
Pirates.
Well, no, they were on. Yeah, you have 5 out in the Tampa Bay area. You got the Phillies, the Yankees.
Oh gosh, you would make me remember all this, wouldn't you?
Well, no, I'm trying to remember them all off the top of my head. But Candy, our
Yeah.
crack statistician, will make us all look smarter than we probably are. But you.
Well, yeah.
Well, and then you got the Tigers out in Lakeland too.
Tigers are out in Lakeland, right?
Right.
So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think I was reading Jeff Passan from ESPN, who's a great baseball writer, and then the plan and how they want to do this. And I was doing a little research. I like it. I think it's a little optimistic to think that it will be all complete with logistics that soon. I mean, we're already moving into the second week in April.
Right.
I don't know if they, I would think, honestly, maybe the 1st of June is more realistic. But if they can pull it off, that's such a boon, and that maybe carries over. The NFL doesn't technically start everything until June with major training camp and whatnot. But if they can get baseball up and running effectively, then that helps other sports for the fall be able to go ahead with their part of their schedule at least for training camps and getting things together. I don't think you're going to see professional sports with fans in the stands the rest of the year, honestly.
Yeah, I have my doubts too.
But this helps at least get get everything rolling.
Yeah, you know what, David? I agree with you. I think the biggest thing is, though, with baseball, everybody's more spread out, which helps a little bit too. Yeah, I'd say you have more than 6 feet between the position players, and you have an empty. And if you have an empty stadium, all the players can sit all over the place, as long as everybody knows where they've got to go. So yes.
Yeah, I had actually thought about that, how I wanted to spin the positive of this.
Yeah.
After we talked pre-production, you honest to goodness could have baseball players up and down the first and third base lines behind the protective, netting and whatnot, as long as they're spread out.
Right.
You're going to see more of that, and I think that it could be a really good thing. It could catch on. What I do think it might do is it's going to alter. Technology is going to alter balls and strikes, and they were talking about that. That you mentioned, that the umpires may stay farther back than they normally would. They also talked about electronic balls and strikes, and I heard that on the radio today. I don't know how appropriate that's going to be. There's still change to work out, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, the only thing I wonder about that, though, is you're asking these players to be away from their families for like 4.5 months. So, then you're talking about them communicating. I understand that. I wonder how many players will do that. But again, I guess if it means getting a paycheck for 4.5, 5 months, then they have some choices to make. And I think it's in everybody's interest to try to do it. Whether it's, I'm one of those types of people, David, I'll see it to believe it.
Right, and I completely understand, your take on that. Here's my take on it too. If you look at social media today, a prime example was Jordan Yamamoto of the Marlins. He's on his Twitter account, and he must be going stir crazy. He goes, "Does anybody have a DIY project they can give me so I can do it while I'm waiting?"
Right.
These guys are just waiting to get back on the field, and sitting around your pool is cool and all that stuff, and hanging out with your family. But these guys want to play baseball.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that the sacrifice of a few months, and who says that they're going to play a whole season?
Right.
Honestly, so I think the sacrifice is probably worth it. These guys just want to play ball.
I think that at this point, everybody wants to see something live, something get started again, something that brings us back to more normalcy. And let's face it, baseball is America's pastime.
Right.
Why not be the the sport that brings it all back and starts us all back to being able to cheer for something and something new as opposed to just watching old reruns of the greatest. And don't get me wrong, it's been kind of cool to be able to see relive some of these old sports history events.
Right.
But bring us back.
Candy, you bring up a really good point too, because I was doing a little research for my other job. See how I played that, Scott? My other job.
Yep, gotcha. I heard it.
In 1994, baseball was on strike, and fans hated it.
Right.
And you remember what the fallout was that. And it took a little while for baseball to come back. And it was what, 2 or 3 years before they really got full attendance, and fans were reinvested and whatnot. And then you had fans in the stands. You had Cal Ripken chasing Lou Gehrig. You had the great home run chase between McGuire and Sosa when it was a chase. All these things that made baseball fun again. And then there was 9/11, and baseball, more than any other sport, captivated how important it was to be American, or to support our country.
Right.
With George Bush throwing out the pitch to the World Series, and everybody standing for God Bless America and listening to Lee Greenwood sing God Bless the USA, and all of these things. I agree with Candy. It is baseball that's going to bring the masses together.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think too, economically, baseball is probably the cheapest of all the sports, where a family of four can still probably go and enjoy it. They probably will have, if they ever do get back to having fans in the stands, it will be like the minor league baseball, where it's a cheap ticket, at least to get people back into the stands and reacclimated to the experience. I don't know what it is like for you guys down there. I know you told me, Scott, that you venture out very rarely. And by the way, everybody that's listening to us, please still be vigilant.
Right.
And listen to what they're telling you and stay inside and whatnot. But I'm going to assume after being in the house for a month, there are going to be a lot of ornery people that just want to get out and watch whatever.
Yeah.
So it's an adjustment for everybody.
I think, though, when you talk about this baseball hiatus, at least you're not going in there with hostile feelings, knowing why it really took place.
No.
So that's what you have going for you. And it's funny how you talk about Cal Ripken. ESPN is actually playing the game tonight when he broke. I think he tied or broke the streak of Lou Gehrig tonight, and Chris Berman was on the call. So it's ironically the timing that you did bring it up. So, yeah, again, you're going to see a lot of interesting things. Now, when I look at the different sports that are out there, I really have my doubts about the NBA ever getting started. I really do, because there's more.
I don't think it will.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Hockey, I'm not sure about, but at least you have gloves and padding, gives you a puncher's chance. The NFL, you will. It's just a matter of when it gets going.
It will get going. I agree with you. But the NBA won't get going because they have their own test positive.
Right.
No matter what happens. And even you can have the assurance from the Surgeon General that everybody is safe. It's got it's got the scarlet letter right on the chest of all those jerseys. It is going to be hard for them to come back this year. I don't think it happens at all.
And now whether you get fans in NFL games, well, stay tuned. This is a fluid situation every time you turn on the news or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I know. And we'll talk, this week later about the virtual draft and stuff like that, because I know you and I have our own feelings about that.
We do, but you know what? Now, let's stay with this recurring theme that we've had throughout the broadcast,
Sure.
Okay? Let's talk about Kaline. I'm sure you've had a chance you've heard enough of the memorials, and so why don't you chime in here as we lead up to 108 Stitches baseball talk with myself and George Icor later on tonight.
Yeah, I'm not old enough to remember him playing because of my age, but I will tell you that consummate player, one of the greatest ever. And if you want, I'm a purist baseball guy. You and I have talked about this.
Right.
I don't believe in the designated hitter. I believe pitchers should pitch into the seventh inning. I don't believe there should be some specialist that comes off a bench to fill a need or a role. Kaline played it just like the greats of yesteryear, where he was gritty and he could do just about everything on the diamond. I like pure baseball, and I like the game today, and we've talked about that too. And I love it for what it is. And then when Mark Luttrell and you and I talked about it last week, Luttrell, that there's a purity to it.
Right.
He exemplifies purity. My mother, when she found out that he died, she shed a tear because when he was younger, and my grandfather would take her to go watch baseball in Detroit and in New York and in Cleveland and in Boston because she was an only child. He would love to take her when he would go on business trips to go watch baseball. She remembers him and she remembered him fondly and said that he was memorable. And for my mother to say that, that's a pretty big deal. So that's the kind of impact that he had on the masses.
Well, he played offense, he played defense. So when you have a statue out there because of your defensive play, my goodness. And if I haven't sent it to every guest tonight, 10 gold gloves, 18 All-Star game appearances, a first ballot Hall of Famer, but more importantly, a first-class human being who got along with everybody. What else can you say about the guy?
He's the original, and he's a class act. That's even more important.
Well, what's even nice about Kaline is at least he won a championship. Look how many great players never did win one. So.
Right. And I was going to say that, but you got to it before me, buddy.
That's all right.
You want to see great players succeed. And we've talked before of players who have played the game the right way and have never won a title.
Right.
At least he won one, so he has that claim to fame.
Well, not only that, he played his entire career with one organization. Nowadays, you don't see that much at all. And as I said tonight, he's the first player to ever. He's one of 7 players to actually have 3,000 hits and 1,500 RBIs with one franchise. And while I bring it on to every guest that we have here, I think everybody should realize that he was a great offensive player and a great defensive player. And what he did, he once told me when I talked to him in interviews.
You won't see that in this day and age either, Scott.
No,
you're not going to see somebody do that in this era.
Well, he admitted to me when I spoke to him and interviewed him one time that he wishes he would have gotten that 400th home run, but he never made a big deal out of it. But as he looked back on it, he thought it might have been a good idea to do it. But you know what? It didn't stop him from getting in the Hall of Fame, and his legacy is what it is. The only thing you probably wonder about is if he wasn't in the Yankees division, how many more championships would he have amassed? No, you're dealing with a bunch of great Yankee teams as well, David. Think about it. A lot of great Yankee teams.
And it stands. Players are judged by who they play against too, and in that era, played against great players for the Yankees, and he played against some of the greatest defensive players of generations, because back then defense in baseball mattered. You don't see that today. Everything is power and speed and velocity, and the statistics. I can't say that. Sorry. The statistics matter.
Right.
You don't talk about defensive statistics.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's
I'll work on that for the next show.
No, but you really don't. I think defense gets underplayed because the offense production overshadows it. And another thing you alluded to tonight, I don't believe in the specialization. I've always been a firm believer, let a pitcher go as long as he possibly can. But everybody will tell you nowadays that they get paid so much money that you have to watch their innings count and pitch count and all that. But I still disagree with that. Because when I grew up with the game, pitchers would pitch on 3 and 4 days rest, and now they're pitching every 5th day. So, but that's for another discussion down the road. So, any closing thoughts about what we have before you can go out there and promote what you represent?
I'm just super excited. We're talking about baseball, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. You and I both know a lot of businesses have been hit hard. Businesses are closing. Businesses are hoping to heck that they can. Mom and pop shops are hoping that they can rebound from this. From a sports writing standpoint, this is like the best thing that's happened to us in a few weeks, because trying to find something to write about consistently has been difficult.
Right.
So this is really a good thing for us.
Well, not only that, I'm really excited about the fact that you're going to be my new permanent co-host on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk.
Wow, permanent, all right.
Yeah, well, you are. I mean, we obviously... well, you are. I say that very respectfully because it's...
No, I know. I'm excited. I'm smiling ear to ear. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I'm grinning, so it's good.
Yeah, well, it's a sport we definitely know a lot about. We know a lot of the sports, but baseball hits me closest home since I've been around the sport my entire life. Candy, what are your thoughts?
Congratulations, David.
Thank you very much, Candy.
I'm sure you'll do wonders for the show.
I know
I
you'll
hope
do
so.
wonders with the show.
I
With
hope
no
so.
disrespect to the show, man, it's not like you have big shoes to fill.
Well, I don't think I can fill candies. That's the thing.
But the other guy wasn't bad, but I know you're going to do an awesome job because you certainly have a lot more experience and you bring that much to the table.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
And yet,
Guys,
don't get me wrong, the other guy did a pretty good job. He was definitely one of the most, the best number of guys I've ever seen. But I think our history, our age, is unquestionably going to bring a lot of credibility to the broadcast as we focus on news and bringing on guests from time to time. So it's a format that we feel very good, that we aim to go ahead and take it such a level that it's all about information. Go ahead, David.
I think this is the first time I've ever been told that being old is okay. So basically, that's what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I'm older than you, and
But still.
so then again, that doesn't take a lot.
With age
We're
comes
doing a great
wisdom normally,
Yeah, that's
David.
it. Sure. We're gonna do great things, and I look forward to hearing what you got to say afterwards when we get off the phone, because I know that you'll post that as soon as it's done. And
Well,
I encourage everybody to be out there and listen to it, because talking about a legend, you don't get to do that very often. I know it's under
right.
different kind of circumstances, but at least you get to talk about the really good things about Kaline's career, and people just today, younger than my son's generation, just won't understand how really good he was.
Well, the previous co-host we had, it was his idea to come up with a baseball show. So, with all due respect, I like the idea, and one of the reasons I agreed to do it is I do have a lot of baseball contacts, and I have so many years. So, I think I wouldn't have a specialized show with any other sport. I like football where it's at, but baseball's a show that should stand out. Like MLB Network, they have so much to do, and so with all credit, I think we did well with the previous co-host. I just think that you and I are going to take this thing to such incredible levels with our background with it all. So with that said, David, I'm glad that you and I are going to take the 108 Stitches baseball talk and take it to levels that we feel are going to be very entertaining for those that are looking for diamond doings, whether it's news, guests, and whatnot. So any closing thoughts, David?
You guys, if you want to follow me, I can. I write for Fansided. I cover the Jaguars in the NFL, and I also cover the Marlins in pro baseball. I can be found on Twitter at DM719907. I'm here in Florida. I'm just waiting for sports to kick back into gear. I know that there are other things that are way more important, but boy, we need a diversion, Scott.
We do. And also, while you're on the line, I should point out that David Levin helps us out in social media, particularly Twitter. And if you're looking how to find the South Florida Tribune on Twitter, all you have to do is hit the @ Tribune South, and that's TRIBUNE South, all one. My personal page is Scoop with 5 3s, 33333. Okay, put your hands up and figure you have 3s. You can also reach the South Florida Tribune on Instagram under that very name, and follow us on Facebook. Candy, any other thing you want to say about as we close out the broadcast?
Just everyone be safe out there.
And rest in peace, Al Kaline. God love you. And I'm glad that we were able to dedicate a sports exchange strictly to baseball, because you're a Hall of Fame person and a Hall of Fame player, and more ways than one. So God bless Al, and it was great seeing you a couple of times. David, anything else?
Definitely. No, guys, I can't wait to talk to you guys tomorrow night, too.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time as we get ready for the sports exchange tomorrow night. Just to give you all advance, Michael Keller, one of my big football guys, is going to be on tomorrow, and David will have a chance to meet another guy who's gridiron great when it comes to a lot of things. So, all right, David, good job tonight, and we'll do it again tomorrow night, and look forward to having you listen and promote the 108 Stitches baseball talk, okay, with myself and George Eichhorn. All right, good night, David.
Good night.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Closing thoughts, Can?
No, I think it was a good show. I mean, one of the things I'll say about Al Kaline, and obviously I didn't watch him. I didn't grow up watching him. But there are so many sports figures that you could look up to that you can always find a little bump in the road, and yet he's not one of them.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, well said. That's for sure. So, meanwhile, on behalf of our guests tonight, Rick Curdy, Bill Winters, and David Levin, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, and once again, Candy did a great job, and we have a lot of good things to look forward to. So, I'm looking forward to the second show tonight that follows us, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk with myself and George Icor. But meanwhile, everybody, on behalf of the South Florida Tribune and our broadcasting network, all we ask you to do is we hope you enjoy the show, listen to it, subscribe, and download it, and we'll always aim to do better the next time. And, of course, you go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, for all the latest news, weather, and sports out there. So we have a great website. We hope that you have an opportunity to visit it. And I should also point out that if you're looking for national news, Reuters does a wonderful job providing it. So, it's a site that everybody can go ahead and gravitate to. Also, we are an Amazon dealer, so if you're looking for some good Amazon gift ideas, you can definitely go ahead and search on Amazon, because there's a lot of good products as well. Support our sponsors, because that's what helps keep this thing going. So, all right, everybody, good night, and we'll see you on our next edition of the Sports Exchange. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows us next. Good night, everybody, and once again, please be safe.
Good night.